Thank you for listening to our podcast, Talking Out Cloud, the podcast where we share IT cloud insights and discuss highlights. I'm your host, Deni, and today we will talk about the following topics. What has the IT market brought in 2024? What IT trends can we expect in 2025? And what kind of services may we expect from MSPs in 2025? In the summary, we will touch upon AI and Copilots, security, green ops, sustainable cloud, AKS, and many topics more. If you would like to understand how FinOps can change your 2025 cloud spend, then keep listening and learn about Azure, how your Azure data insights can help you to understand the complexity of Azure resources and get a better grip on your cloud spend. Please let me introduce my guest for today. I have with me Joop Verhagen, CEO and owner of Intercept, and Arjan Geertsema, CTO at Intercept. It is a pleasure to have the business again in my first episode of this year, both commercial and technological. So thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
A new CTO this year, Deni, because I think you started last year as well with the business and technology at your podcast table. And well, I'm happy to say since the 1st of November, I'm the new CTO of Intercept. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
So how is that going, the first month?
Well, I think we're doing fine and love to be part of Intercept in this new role and capacity. So yeah, really looking forward for what we can achieve this year and maybe do a podcast next year about the trends in 25.
Let's do it. So let's first look back into 2024. Definitely, I've seen that AI and Copilots have done an introduction and being adopted anywhere in the software. So let's start with you, Arjan. So what do you think of that? How has it been evolving? What do you think about this whole trend about AI and Copilots?
Yeah, so I think if you paid attention, then AI were definitely the trends of 2024.
And AI, I think.
Well, you might be right there. So actually, to start off with with kind of an anecdote there, we as Intercept, we always have our customer advisory board once every year where we kind of invite our customers over. And in 23, we talked about then what will be the topics for you as software-driven companies for 2024. And only one of them said, well, AI is definitely something we're going to invest in, and we need Intercept there as well to help us, guide us, So we asked that same question again in 24, and then we asked the customer to kind of look back. What were the topics now actually on top of mind in 2024? And 9 out of 10 now said, well, we did something with AI, but we're still looking. And I think that kind of describes 2024. I mean, the developments went super fast, improvements, and at the same time, I see a lot of companies kind of looking, how can I really leverage AI either in my software and provide it as a service to my customers, or maybe internally in all kind of internal software that helps speed up the business. But the nice thing as well is we see more and more examples of what it can actually do, what it can bring, and how you can, as a business, leverage either internally or in your software as a SaaS software provider.
Yeah. Can you name some examples?
So obviously, the ease at which you now can incorporate kind of a Copilot type of functionality in your own software is just super easy. Yeah. So you see a lot of companies now experimenting with this chat-based interfaces for asking questions, automating simpler tasks. And I think we will touch upon later on with the development within the Copilot studios of Microsoft and the agent-based task we can now run within those Copilots. But at the same time, I mean, especially GenAI is super in searching through information and providing relevant content based on your prompts, also based on information you might have. So, for instance, simple question about HR procedures. I mean, that's something all companies have to deal with. And being able to kind of super easy leverage existing information, maybe in wikis, in Word documents, whatever, to actually make them available and now open them up with these chat-based interfaces. I think that's what you see a lot happening right now.
Yeah.
So, Arjan, do you think that because if we talk about AI, we our customers are of course software companies, right? So SaaS companies who run their environment in the cloud. Do you think that they're, from a technological maturity perspective, that they are ready for AI?
Well, I think they're kind of searching how to incorporate this in their products. And later on, we talk about what MSPs will do in 2025. I think there's a big opportunity to kind of guide them there as well. How do you do this in a secure way? Because all of a sudden you expose a new endpoint, so to speak, a new way of interacting with your application. Will you do this? Will that be done in a safe way? The same cost-wise. I mean, we will be talking about sustainable cloud, about financial ways of managing your cloud. All of a sudden, these new co-pilots or AI assistant functionality of your software might incur a lot of cost. Do you have kind of guardrails to make sure this? Well, you're not a victim of your own success, as we say in the Netherlands.
Which is actually a big spend in a big bill in the cloud, right?
It could result in a lot of token use indeed, and result in a new way of a bill shock. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so basically you talk about two types of AI. I think the individual ChatGPT that most of the people use for, I don't know, getting 15 subjects for a podcast episode. I don't know.
Good.
The co-pilot in Microsoft 365 will assist you with your presentation.
Give me a summary, help me draft this email. And then you have for our customers, I think, the integration of AI in their software. And their software runs in the heart of most organizations, right? It's ERP, it's ECDs, it's EPDs, it's, finance application, business processes, etc.
Exactly.
So I think those are two distinguishes about AI that we need to make. And that maybe also expect different guidelines. I don't know if that's...
well, I would say so.
Look at it.
And at least also a different users base, because what you see with the ChatGPT and Microsoft 365 co-pilots, that's more used by the end users, whether within the software company or even the end users of their products. With the development and co-pilots within their software, you're kind of looking at how development teams leverage the Azure services that are available and coming out throughout last year. That will be definitely a different audience, and they need a different guidance as well.
Yeah, maybe you have two different aspects there as well. The Copilot, for example, to help write code faster, and then actually integrating a large language model, for example, algorithms in your software to actually speed up the business process of their customers, right? That are also maybe two angles there as well.
You're totally right. I mean, what you see with GitHub Copilot is just an incredible leap forward last year as well in kind of, at first it was mostly reasoning about the single code file that was open nowadays. Now it can reason about your whole solution. It will actually leverage existing patterns and standards you have in your software and kind of change its answers and its reasoning based on those standards. So definitely that has seen a big leap forward last year as well. In assisting the development teams, definitely.
Yeah, I also have another example. I was talking to a customer and they say we are going to treat AI the same way as security. We're doing AI awareness sessions now internally. And Copilot was already prohibited within the company, and there was another tool, I think maybe ChatGPT, was also off the table, not negotiable. And they were discussing two different toolings that were way more secure and better in guarding their IP because they were afraid of actually losing IP. You have something like algorithm transparency, the black box problem in AI, right? What's actually happening with the data that I'm uploading, and where is it going, and actually who is the owner of the stuff that AI is actually feeding us back, right? Who's the owner of the IP? And I think as a software company, and in the software market as well, there's a lot of private equity active, so there's a lot of buying and selling of companies as well. So what does AI do in that triangle as well? I think is also very interesting from an IP and ownership perspective. So I think there are multiple ways to look at AI and 2025. And well, I think we can fill another 15 episodes or maybe 100 episodes talking about this. So.
Yeah, great. I think actually in the next episode we'll talk about large language models.
Okay.
So I have Microsoft here at the
Good
table.
introduction then here.
Yeah, so thanks for that. So happy to discuss that further. So what do you think still, right? So they always say like AI and the Copilots are about productivity and innovation. Do you use yourself as well?
Oh, definitely, yes. I mean, back in the days when I was still doing some coding myself, I mean, from the start on, it will assist you so much in just productivity, like Job already mentioned, having a summary of a meeting you might not have attended, actually maybe even translating a meeting for people in their mother tongue. I mean, it's so convenient in a lot of stuff as well. And I mean, we just mentioned that before the podcast as well. Just kind of coming up with ideas when you can, okay, we do a top podcast about Azure. Well, let's ask Gen AI what could be the topics. I mean, and that might not be the definitive answer, but at least it's kind of a starting point for your reasoning and for your own work.
It's a kickstart, but do you also don't think you get lazy by using AI? Because like... I don't even look at my language anymore. You just put it in ChatGPT and say rewrite in the proper English, and then you get it back and okay. Or you have Grammarly and you just write stuff and Grammarly automatically corrects it for you. So spelling, grammar.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, right? Because if I look in my personal life, so I have kids and they always say like the kids of today are way smarter, but I think they're just thinking differently. And then taking this to the topic we discussed now, so AI and the use of it, I would say that it's just a different approach of doing the same. So yeah, I think you can discuss also like is creativity being impacted? But I think future will tell, right? Because I think we need to do more research to this. But it's definitely interesting what you're asking.
Well, on the other hand, I mean, I've discussed with my kids as well and said, well, you can ask ChatGPT as well, write a letter to my teacher and do it if for a person that would be 16 years old.
Yeah.
With dyslexia. So maybe add 1 or 2 spelling mistakes in there as well. And it will generate a letter for you, including all these aspects.
And then including ADD or something like that. Halfway through the letter going about blue box or whatever. Then.
So, I mean... There is some creativity in prompt engineering and prompting as well. So
you're right. Yeah, you also need to think like asking questions like that, right?
Yeah,
it's also a different skill set. Yeah.
So let's conclude. It will definitely make more impact in 2025. Let's discuss later how it will. For 2024, it changed already our business and our daily life. So I think that's really valuable. You also touched upon security. And then if I look back into 2024, right, it's always a hot topic. So security. So what happened in 2024?
What didn't happen in 2024? I mean, we saw ransom attacks, lots of them. You see definitely an increase over time. You see, by the way, a lot of password attacks. We're going to touch upon security and what we do as an MSP. The password attacks are still one of the largest attack factors in how even nation actors, but also hackers enter your systems. We recently saw that in the Netherlands as well, where a lot of colleges, universities were actually hacked. It all started with access to a particular account, or actually 2 accounts, I think, in this occasion. So, I mean, this is a continued topic for us as an industry to address within Azure, within the cloud as well. And I would say this is a joint effort. So I'm actually, within Intercept, glad that we not only have the Microsoft Cloud and Azure, where we obviously work a lot with, then we do a lot on the infrastructure layer and how you securely set up your Azure infrastructure. But it also ties into the software architecture. So I'm really happy and glad that we now have these software architecture capabilities within Intercept as well to kind of discuss with our customers, which probably have their own architects and software development teams, how we can actually make sure that security is being taken care of from the Microsoft services we use, from the infrastructure we set up, to actually the software running in the cloud built by those software-driven companies.
And I also think that it's still, some stuff is so extremely fundamental and basic. One of the biggest thing I saw last year was not a customer of ours, but a company who once had an Azure subscription, didn't do anything with it, so no multi-factor authentication on that. It was like an old subscription. They once got it with a big license deal they did. Now here's a couple of thousands of euros of spent in Azure for you to look around in Azure. And nobody looked at it. And I think it was maybe 5-6 years old. And then it got hacked because there was no multi-factor authentication, standard passwording, etc. And no ransomware, nothing. No, just spinning up servers across the globe, crypto mining, resulting into more than 200,000 euros in Azure spend.
Yeah,
and it's so fundamental to just check your empty subscriptions or to use at least multi-factor authentication. So if you talk about security, we can go like, yeah, we should all buy new stuff, but you also always check the basics, and that goes for us as a company as well. Keep checking your basics. It's still extremely necessary in 2025, 2024, and I think it will always be a necessity to just keep the basics super clean and tight.
Yeah. And what were the most valuable features that came out in regards to security in Azure?
Well, what you see is there's kind of a combination of both topics we're talking about. That the AI is actually assisting the security and efforts that are being taken within Azure and within companies. So, of course, within security, one of the challenges is there is a lot of data, a lot of login attempts, a lot of logs that are generated by the Azure service, but also with the applications. Well, it's a tremendous task to kind of find logic in there or find maybe signals that something is compromised or something is not right. And so you see a lot of AI now assisting there and finding these anomalies as well. So I would say this is definitely one of the things where AI makes our life easier as well to filter through this huge amount of data.
Yeah, but they say it's the needle in the haystack, right? But with this amount of data, you first need to determine which haystack, and then the needle, right? So you need advanced AI capabilities to actually filter through all that stuff.
And here again, I mean, we have the haystack at least of the Microsoft services, the Azure services. We have the haystack of the infrastructure. We have the haystack of the software. Yeah, so you might even have the haystack of the endpoint the end user is using. So kind of have this 360 degrees view of what's happening. I think this is definitely something where AI can help out, and that's what we're seeing in 2024, and I'm sure we will see even more in 2025.
Because we asked our customers on our customer advisory board what are your top 3 priorities. It was security, costs, and migrating or innovating on Azure. So also migrating, and it touch into, I think, security and costs as well. One of the biggest priorities still.
Interesting. Interesting, yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, sure.
Then we have a topic called sustainability. So green IT and sustainable cloud. Obviously, I think we also discussed it last year in the podcast. So obviously, all the big vendors are heavily investing to reduce the CO2 footprint. I think this trend has definitely been set as well in 2024. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, good question, because we can also touch on sustainable AI use, right? So back to AI again, it's creating a lot of CO2. So what about sustainable AI? But that may be another podcast episode. No, sustainability is not only important from a vendor perspective, as in the big guys are pushing it. It's also, of course, the government, regulations, ESG reporting, customers of ours asking us, okay, fine, but show us your ESG reporting. So if you talk about sustainability, I think it's bigger than sustainability. And then I think there's also a very big internal internal drive to do stuff tomorrow better than today. So how can we lead the change in sustainable cloud usage? Then you have sometimes super simple questions. If you put a reservation in Azure, you have a cost reduction, of course, because you reserve the capacity. It doesn't make sense to turn off the server unless you're talking about sustainability. If you if you stop the server, then if you turn it off, then you're also your CO2. You also have a CO2 reduction, right? And these are angles that we've never looked at like this before. But if you put sustainability in there, you not only have a savings plan, you also have a reduction plan. And last year we saw that the APIs around sustainability were not that good, but you see now that at the end of the year, the carbon footprint dashboarding in the cloud is actually coming up. You see tooling for sustainability coming up, but also from FinOps perspective, moving into SustainOps or sustainability, right? So I think the cloud is great because we will become way more efficient, but it's also very polluting. So we need to have an answer to that in the long run. That doesn't happen overnight, but we definitely need to start planning for how to do it better in the long run. So create offerings from an MSP perspective around, okay, how can we reduce your footprint? But maybe it start with awareness. So something that we're looking into is, can we put the amount of CO2 on the invoice to the customer as well?
Oh yeah.
Can we start reporting on the amount of CO2 our customers are using? So we have SaaS companies, right? So software companies. So of course they want to grow. They want to add more users. So you can imagine that the CO2 footprint is growing, but maybe we can pledge to something that it's way more efficient, so that the amount of CO2 that's growing is becoming less and less and less.
Yeah.
And then I think the big vendors in the long run, like Microsoft themselves, are pledging themselves or committing themselves to being carbon negative by, I don't know the year number.
I think 2030.
Yeah, and then from their existence, right? From the year that they started. So they want to, like, I don't know, buy a lot of solar power energy or something, so that they can actually make sure that their entire carbon footprint is negative over the past years. So I think, and that's of course super positive. So it's the vendors doing their stuff. It's the government putting in regulation. It's the internal drive. At least we at Intercept have that internal drive, and I see that a lot around us as well. Customers starting to have that drive as well. Okay, can we put up a CO2 saving plan, for example, and creating visibility around this? So starting with awareness. So I think that's what kept us busy in the last years, and what definitely is going to keep us busy in 2025.
Yeah. Job, so you mentioned all these aspects, but you also mentioned that right now getting really the insight in your how sustainable your applications are running in your cloud is kind of hard yet. Mm-hmm. Would you say that if you would start with SustainOps, and this is kind of new for you as a software business, then kind of combining SustainOps with FinOps would be kind of a great start?
My take at that is that the most logical part to start is from FinOps, because if you reduce your cost, you'll also reduce CO2. So I think that's a very efficient way to start SustainOps. And then later look on optimizing, okay, now I reserve the capacity, can I also put the server off at night, for example, or in the weekends, right? So then you're also already, I think, maybe in the long tail. But if you say your spend goes down by 50%,
you're probably using less Azure resources as well.
You're using less Azure resources, so you're using less CO2 as well. Yeah. So I think that's a great angle to start. But in the long run, I think every company should have a maybe, I don't know if we should call it a CO2 plan or maybe a footprint plan, or they should have an idea on where they're moving with their footprint. And I was actually thinking of the idea of reporting our footprint of our customers on our website. Why not make it extremely visible? But then you touch on the technological challenges, because one carbon footprint dashboard is in Azure per customer. Getting all the data out and combining that to a bigger dashboard is that's difficult. So that's where the API stuff comes in, and where we need to do some manual stuff as well, I think, for now.
Well, and what I love to see as well is that over time we can kind of report the trends in your carbon footprint as well in Azure. So you might maybe see that launching a new feature in your application increases your carbon footprint.
Yep.
Well, then you might rethink how you architect such a feature that you're not increasing your carbon footprint, but you solve your architectural challenges in another way.
Yep.
So kind of providing these insights will definitely be helpful in the future as well for customers to make decisions how to architect our application, which Azure services to leverage. Because in general, I would say, FinOps is definitely a way to start. But you can kind of combine that with cloud native as well. We did a podcast about that last year as well, Deni. Yeah. I think the more cloud native you become with your software, running, really leveraging the cloud and let the cloud work for you, well, that reduce your Azure spend as well, because you're kind of optimizing within Azure the way you're using the cloud. So I would say next to FinOps, think about a cloud native strategy will actually help you with reducing your carbon footprint as well.
Yeah, so optimize for your software, optimize for your spend, optimize for sustainability. I think that's the way to look at it. But I do also had a customer, which I think was also a great idea. They had a Green IT month, on which the entire IT department was committed to cutting down waste, so cleaning out resources that weren't used anymore, etc. And then in the same month, they also took their test and development environment out of one of the big hyperscalers to a local startup across the street, literally, which was a green cloud startup. He said, well, I don't know if they're going to make it in the long run, but I'm going to commit my test and development resources to them because they run on heat coming from different sources than just generating themselves all the power, and etc. etc. They had all these different green initiatives in their cloud environment, which was a small local cloud, if you want to call it like that. But I thought the idea was actually very practical, because you just dedicate the entire team for a month to reduce waste in your environment, which also cuts in cost. You call it Green IT month, and then look at, okay, but what resources are not production, and can I commit them to initiatives that are actually way more sustainable than the way I'm running production at the moment, so that I can actually test and experiment with all these different kind of initiatives that are doing better than the hyperscalers. I thought that was actually a very good and also a very pragmatic, practical approach on sustainability. And the whole IT department loves the idea, because after the month, you not only have reduced your spend, you have a more cleaned up environment, so it's more efficient, it's optimized.
Hey, and it's way secure as well, because like we mentioned, leaving those subscriptions and VMs maybe just laying there, not doing anything. I mean, that's a security risk as well. So definitely a nice initiative there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So thanks for sharing this. I really loved it. I definitely think again, so that the green ops and I lost it. The green IT and sustainable cloud is definitely interesting to watch, and to also look to see what will bring in 2025. So I hear a lot of great ideas. Interesting.
Yeah, we need to have a story around it at least, because in our purpose, it's that we do stuff for a better tomorrow, right? So the funny thing was, by the way, I read a quote the other day that software is eating the world, right? So the software in the cloud needs to be sustainable, but AI is eating software. Yeah. So touching back on AI again, which I think is I don't know if it's really true in that sense that it will be done in 5 years, but the idea, I think, is very provoking, and good to always be balancing or on your toes, right? It keeps you on your toes. So, but we need to at least have a plan for that, and our commitment is internally as well that although we don't have a structured plan yet in 2025, we'll gather the initiatives, the stuff that we're already doing that actually contributed. Okay, let's also take part of the formal part, create reporting around it, that we can actually start reporting on that stuff, because it's also a necessity, I think, for all our stakeholders in the long run, and our customers, of course, which are, of course, also stakeholders. And then create actually more of a policy. Vision is maybe a bit of a big word, but a policy, and then make
our story about it.
Yeah, maybe a story about it. Yeah, so that's something that we as a company are going to work out in 2025 and do way better in them than we did in 2024.
So you just mentioned something interesting. So AI is eating software. So let's take a bridge into 2025 and move forward. So the statement is, is it mandatory, or will AI actually being involved in any software solution in the future or in 2025?
Deni, big questions.
In 2025? Nice. In 2025 or in the future?
Let's say the future.
Well, I would say so.
Yeah, yes. If AI is in the basic algorithm, then yes. Yeah. I think every software solution will have some form of AI in it in the long run. Yeah.
So now we see, obviously, because we discussed it before as well, a lot of chatbots, a lot of data, and that's being used to actually find your answers. What about the new agents? How will it be involved? in the software solutions as well.
What you now see more and more, and you see that with Azure Copilot Studio, with the Azure AI search, the services are now being released, sometimes in preview, especially the agent capacity you're mentioning. So more and more you see AI not being able to only reason about information, but also kind of, with the use of these agents, perform tasks as well, and even multi-stage tasks there as well. So I definitely see you will see a really uptake in all these different agents, and I expect actually software companies to provide these agents as well. So kind of small agents that hook up to maybe existing APIs, existing endpoints that software might have, to let you perform tasks using these copilots as well, which can be just kind of outside their own software. I mean, you see a lot of copilots being integrated in their software, but it could actually be that within a different copilot or just a ChatGPT-like environment, you can actually maybe talk to your ERP system without actually opening your ERP system. Maybe a simple example, book your holidays in your HR system without actually touching your HR system. Yep. So these agents will be able to perform tasks, but not only that, they will actually be able to communicate with each other as well. So you can have even more complex tasks being performed there as well. And we see those examples nowadays as well. I mean, again, the simple example, you book your holiday and then the HR agent makes sure that those are booked within your HR system. But also your agenda is blocked that this period is your holiday period. It might even cancel your appointments during those. So you can kind of see this myriad of agents helping you out there performing, for now at least, simpler tasks. Within Intercept, for instance, we leverage AI as well within our internal software. We're now making it easier to book your hours. So let's say you're working on a project, why not have an AI assistant help you book those hours? And it might even have some context about, okay, this is the Scrum board you're working on. These are actually the issues that are assigned to you. Well, with that context, it might be easier for you to say, well, I worked on this and this customer doing this and this type of work, and it will actually book the hours for you. Because nobody likes to book hours. Mm-hmm. They're always behind. We always have to chase each and every one. And back in the days, yes, I had it to be chased myself as well. So, let's AI assist you there. And then provide this really friendly way of using your chat as a way to enter your hours instead of those horrible applications you always have to use.
So I hear what you're saying. At the same time, I was thinking, so it could also happen, of course, that a kind of a chain reaction is being launched, which has a bad effect on all the things that are happening, like blocking everything in your agenda, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And you maybe just misentered your holiday instead of May, it's June, and now you have an entirely empty May week. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So I think it's kind of tricky, right? At the same time. So I think it also needs a very clear definition on the task and logics behind it.
So you kind of see these patterns emerging now in the whole industry. So like 2 years ago, Gen AI Ops wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden, kind of a combination of these software development practices we've known for a long time, the DevOps practices we apply within Intercept as well, now also apply on this Gen AI. So we will be using pipelines to actually deploy our AI solutions. But always, as part of those pipelines, instead of doing tests like we do with software development, we might now do evaluations to kind of see, is our model still holding up and still working as expected, like you mentioned. Another thing is that patterns within the use and in the programming of those co-pilots and AI agents say, okay, for a actual mutation of data, I will ask explicit permission. So maybe I can say in the booking of your holiday example, I would say I'm going on holiday from this and this week in May. And it will actually say, do you want me to book these hours as free days in your HR system? And do you want me to actually clean up your agenda during those weeks as well? So kind of having these patterns, you see those emerging as well, to indeed, like you said, make sure that no unintended consequences of one small prompt that will kind of have a ripple effect in a lot of systems, maybe unwanted. Yeah, definitely.
Maybe it start trading for you on the stock exchange as well, right? There goes your savings.
Yeah, it might be determining based on your bank account that you do not have enough money yet for your holiday, so it kind of needs to do
stop wasting your time and money. Yeah.
Anything to add, Job?
No, not really. I'm looking forward to agents that are cleaning my agenda. So yes, more of those, please. Like deleting or canceling meetings when you're on holiday. It's always like, crap, people are waiting for me. I forgot to cancel the meeting because I'm on holiday, right? But I already registered the holiday in my agenda, which is, of course, already a winner for me. So, I think these are great examples of how your personal productivity and communication actually goes up.
Yeah.
Which maybe ties into the thing you said about your kids and how you work, right? So you redefine the way you work. That's basically what's going to happen.
Fair enough. Do you see the same requests coming from customers?
Not at this.
Well, actually, we did.
Oh,
because
we did. Yes, I do.
Well, I recently spoke with a customer who was actually handling tickets within their internal software, tickets coming from their customers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so we actually leveraged AI for ourselves there as well. And so we were talking about, and he said, well, can you actually help us as well? Well, as you know, we have the development capabilities and the data and AI capabilities right now within Intercept as well. And to be honest, AI capabilities is still something very fresh, as it is to most of us. But we said, well, we can definitely have a look as well. He said, well, I also have like 500 plus articles in my knowledge base, which I would like to leverage as part of this AI assistant in my ticketing system. Well, we can definitely do so as well. We can leverage Azure AI search. So we can bring all this existing content there as well. So we're actually now, some initial steps. We're doing some work for customers there as well. But even more, I mean, you mentioned 2025. One of the things I would love to kind of discuss with customers as well, having them now all kind of figuring out how to leverage AI in their system, whether it's a Copilot, whether it's these agent-based systems. So what kind of guardrails do you need? So how can we as a managed service provider help you make sure this is done in a secure way, as we mentioned? I mean, talking about the hallucinations, talking about hijacking attempts. So we should prevent those, but also from a financial perspective, how can we make sure that you have real-time budget alerts when your AI solution becomes way too popular or maybe overused, et cetera, et cetera. So as a managed service provider, I would help our customers there as well, just as what we did with, it started out with VMs, what we do right now a lot with AKS. We have a managed story there around AI and the AI services, at least within Intercept. So again, just at the beginning, we're separating out these two groups of users, the one using the Microsoft 365 Copilots, the JetGPT ones. But here I'm talking about how to, as a development team, integrate AI in a secure and wise way within your software.
Yeah. And do you believe there is a need for user training and adoption? Because obviously, if I look onto myself, and I think I see it with some of the customers as well I'm talking to, is that a lot of people just experiencing by themselves. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, one of the things, and we touched upon during the customer advisory board, was security. And as Job mentioned, this is kind of throughout all our customers a topic. And actually, customers liked to kind of talk to different software companies about how you're solving your security struggles. I would say we need this kind of dialogue within AI as well. Mm-hmm. So we can definitely kind of facilitate such a discussion because we know all these customers, which are software-driven companies. But I would say we as an industry, as software-driven companies, we should have these discussions indeed in how to use it wisely, how to make sense about all the options that are available right now. Because as mentioned, I mean, we're talking about the Azure AI search, which is an area where you definitely need developer capabilities. You need AI specialists there to help you out. But at the same time, with the things like Copilot and the low-code solutions, well, it becomes so easy for, I would say, a business person to build their own Copilot. Yeah. Okay, do we actually know what it entails? What did actually we were mentioning about the where do you bring your data? is that strictly restricted to your own OpenAI instance, or are you actually now feeding all your business data into an open and not a proprietary solution? So those are definitely topics we need to address as an industry and with our customers as well in 2025. Yes.
Yeah, and I think we have an internal example as well. We're doing a lot of certifications and compliance stuff, right? So the one internally responsible for that is Arjen, and he created a policy around AI, which we actually commented on. Because one of the thoughts were, okay, we're only going to allow Copilot. So no internal use for ChatGPT, for example. Mm-hmm. So, and one of the things was never, ever upload customer data in a AI service. So, okay, so those are actually already two rules or guidelines or safeguards. Okay, so and then my comment was, okay, if we're only going to allow Copilot, we better make sure that we train everybody on Copilot. And first of all, make sure everybody has access to Copilot, because not everybody has access to Copilot, right? So these are already internal stuff that we're talking about. So if we already have that, then our customers and their customers will have that as well, right? So we're trying to create policy, safeguards, and yes, training as well, 100%. I don't know if you need specific training in asking, I don't know, the prompt, right? Because we're all becoming prompt engineers. Yeah. So, well, maybe, but we had some internal demos about that as well, and how to actually ask AI better questions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, great to hear. Makes sense.
We need to become AI literates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I agree. What does it exactly means?
Well, I mean, just as when computers started, people had to learn how to use a computer, a personal computer.
Is the plug-in? Did you switch the power button?
Yeah, well, exactly like that. And this is for your CDs, and this is not a cup holder. Yeah, those are definitely things that...
Free cup holder.
And I mean, we saw that with AI with the cloud, as well. Okay, you can bring your stuff to the cloud, but it doesn't mean that you leverage cloud in the best way possible, in a sustainable way, in a financial wise way. So we should talk about these subjects with AI as well. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And thanks for the love. So we briefly touched upon how sustainability and FinOps are related.
Yeah.
What can we, besides that being together, expect from FinOps in 2025?
Well, FinOps is a bit like the same, like aggregating all the data, storing all the data, doing discovering trends, etc. is also important from a financial perspective. So people expect that all to be there in the cloud, but it's mostly not. So you need to build solutions around that. And I think we can do way more in regards to financially optimizing environments than the standard tooling actually provide. And hence a FinOps solutions there, I think. Where we use tooling or best practices to optimize cloud environments. Because, of course, Microsoft gives recommendations, but we need recommendations over all our customers. Of course, recommendations are, for example, this VM is underutilized, but the recommendations is not actively hunting for zombie resources, right? So resources that are there that are not being used, or maybe storage accounts which don't have any transactions going over them anymore. So you need to store all that data, look into that storage account and see, okay, in the last 6 months, nobody used that storage account. So, okay, let's move it to cold storage or delete it or whatever you want to do that. And that active way of managing your environment from a spend perspective, we call FinOps. That's one part, but the other part is getting all the data out of the environment and also getting it into the customer's own Power BI, for example, getting all their tagging along with that data. So what maybe customers do not know, but if we download the invoice, we need to spin up an extra virtual machine in Azure to actually download the Excel file from our partner environment for Microsoft, because the Excel is so big with all the data in there. So getting all the tags and getting that in a breakdown into Azure actually is a hell of a job and is highly automated by Intercept. But that's like thousands of hours of automation in there to actually process all the invoices every month, and then getting that to the customer with the right tagging, etc., so that they can internally also report per product or per group or per department, is also a part of FinOps. Then you have the FinOps Best Practices Toolkit that Microsoft released that we're going to leverage in that. And we're going to actively help our customers to better leverage Azure Cost Management, because there are, of course, tooling in Azure already to help you manage your spend. And you can there do budgeting, tagging, alerting, forecasting, etc. And these 4 areas combined is, like, in a nutshell, what we mean with FinOps. And I'm talking about that every quarter, for example, extracting all the best practices, hunting for efficiency, savings, and optimizing the environment from a managed services perspective. And it's one of the top priorities of our customers still. Optimizing environments, cutting costs, doing things efficient. Not necessarily paying less, but make efficient use of the cloud. And you also have in the cloud infrastructure drift, as you also have on-prem, right? Like the old days. So you need to manage everything there from a resource perspective, because everything has costs associated. Yeah.
And then is this then discussed with the financial director? Or is this more
that's actually a good question, because we had a discussion about which stakeholders you have, because you from a managed services perspective, you would actually naturally evolve the discussion with your engineering, your customer success manager. You talk about what happened in the last quarter, what were the trends, maybe the number of tickets you logged, closed, etc., security issues. And you also look at the roadmap, what's going to happen next quarter, how much resource do you need from Intercept, what are you going to do yourself? And you naturally want to evolve that discussion and what happened from a cost perspective, and what savings or maybe efficiency are we going to address in the next quarter. And then the exact same question was asked, okay, but don't you need a different stakeholder for that discussion? Maybe partially, if you ask me, because I also think that from a development engineering or maybe head of operations, it's costs is also extremely important. So it's also the way you look at the cloud. It's not just technically, it also has a financial aspect. I think we are sometimes have the credit card of our customers, right? So we need to be very careful and always clearly communicate about that and the costs associated. But yes, maybe a chief product officer or maybe a chief financial officer also needs to be included in the discussions that we have on a regular interval. So you also see the stakeholder scene changing, with our customers if we talk about FinOps. But I think that's also going to happen if we talk about sustainability. Yeah. Because maybe the developer doesn't care if the machine is running at night, because maybe, I don't know, he doesn't look at it. But maybe that someone who has sustainability in their portfolio thinks, no, that machine needs to be shut down at night because we're saving CO2. So maybe the changeholder scene is changing there internally with us. The stakeholder scene is changing as well. So maybe not jump in a call with 6 persons, but set up the meeting differently so that everybody is on speed dial. If you need us for 10 minutes, then I'll be there in the meeting with the customer. But just make sure that everybody is aware, share the information. So maybe a bit of an elaborate answer on your question. But changing these managed services offerings also changes the stakeholders that we talk to and that we align internally as well.
And to kind of add to that, Job already mentioned, I mean, the insights that we provide and providing first maybe the tagging strategy there, and then the insight that we'll actually provide to such a business, that will actually probably make a change within the business as well. So we kind of see 2 customers, either some asking us, hey, we need more insights because I want to make sure that my marketing applications are actually on the marketing budget and my financial applications are on the financial budgets, et cetera, et cetera. So these needs is kind of internal. Or what we will be helping customers say, hey, did you ever think about having such a strategy and making sure that? So kind of having these insights that will lead to a discussion within a company as well. Of actually how do you distribute your cost, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think it's a real valuable to all the customers, definitely. Interesting. Arjan, I would like to ask you something about cloud native development and software architecture.
Please do.
Serverless, precisely.
We'll be here for another day.
Yeah, exactly. This will be my final question, but I'm just asking you, like, what can we expect from serverless architecture and cloud data software development in 2025 related to MSP services?
Well, maybe you mentioned that already in your introduction as well. As we see within our company, and one of the trends maybe in 2024, to get back to that as well, is that we see an enormous increase in AKS resources being utilized within Azure as well. And looking then forward to 2025, we're going to bring a AKS offering to the market as well. We're kind of still debating the name, but we'll probably settle for the AKS Accelerator, which helps you get up to speed with AKS in Azure, where we actually help you deploy part of your software in AKS. So to really have you, give you a head start there, combined with what we now call AKS Control. So have a AKS environment set up for you where we use all these sensible defaults. And so we're not talking about best practices there yet, because what is best kind of differs based on your situation. But there are some sensible defaults. And that's how we set up your AKS environment. We do the updating and making sure that this is all running smoothly for you. Which is, I would say now, one of the Azure services that helps you become more cloud native, more resilient, more scalable. It's not to say AKS is per se cloud native, but I would definitely say this is definitely a step into that direction and help you. How does this, excuse me. How? No. Thank you there. It's all coming back to me. How does this ties into to software architecture? Like I mentioned, with security as well. Also with software development and with becoming cloud native, it is a combination of what Azure resources are you using? Well, we mentioned AKS, but also how is your software architected? Is it architected in such a way that you can really leverage these types of services? So more and more we see with customers is that we, when designing new parts of their Azure infrastructure or helping them for the first time to actually land in Azure, we have to talk about your software architecture as well, because these things are so intertwined. We can't do without. And then you come to cloud native software development as well. So all of a sudden, this whole range of Azure services are available to you. How are you and your developer teams actually leverage these services, whether it be key vault for storing sensitive information, Azure configuration services for storing all kind of configuration, which you usually might have done in a configuration file locally in your container or in your VM. So as development teams, you can kind of have this whole toolbox now of Azure services available. And when you're talking about AI, the story becomes even more complex, because that means that all of a sudden you have to have a data story as well, because AI might leverage that data, or AI might actually leverage your existing APIs as well. So how can we build API in such a ways, maybe using API management and these type of services, to take away maybe part of your authentication? Which, by the way, you never want to build, I would say, yourself, because it's always complex. When we're talking about security, it's always vulnerable. So maybe leverage AI of Azure services there as well to do this in a standardized way for you, which means that it might be easier for your AI resources to leverage your existing API endpoints, etc. as well. So I would say starting from infrastructure where we have been big throughout Intercept's existence, the discussion becomes more and more broad, because we kind of like to have an integrated approach to being successful in the cloud there.
Yeah. So it's definitely evolving.
100%, yeah. And I think that the AKS control is a really good example, because in the next 2 months we'll also release security control, which basically the same story, right? If we want to do that correctly, you need a more expanded services on that as well. Of course, last year we released cloud control, so hence the name control, right? And Arjan already touched on a more managed AI services later this year. But we're also releasing an academy and advanced DR services. So there's a lot from an MSP perspective coming in 2025. FinOps, of course, and SustainOps as well. So that's actually grinds our gears and keeps us or gets us out of bed on Monday morning, right?
Thank you so much for sharing all these great ideas, visions, having these great discussions. I think we came to an end. So let me first thank you for being here today.
Sure.
Well, happy to be here.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. For the next episode, we will have Emiel Verbund. Emiel Verbund is a CSA at Microsoft, and he will discuss together with me about large language models, about the responsibility and the existence of Copilot and beyond. So keep listening. Thank you, listeners, for listening to this one, and happy to hear you and listen to you there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deni.